Hi, I'm going to make a little drawing of a female nude, one of my favorite models, Joy Dreike. And she's a really great model. She looks very similar to the Greek goddesses that you see in sculptures, and she has the right proportions for that kind of images. And I actually traced from a photo the outlines, and when I trace I can concentrate on the hatchings. As you can see, I don't have to search for the right proportions anymore. And whether you think tracing is okay or not, it's personal, but I just think of the kind of drawing that I'm able to make this way. Maybe I could do that if I draw these outlines freehand as well. I could do that, but I find that I get to make other types of drawings when I trace them, and I find these kind of hatchings interesting. So I first start with the face. It's always encouraging when the facial expression is okay, and to go further from there. And yeah, the darkest parts first. First the shadows here in the hand, and this was a drawing that I spent 2 hours on making it, and this video is 10 minutes, so I've speeded it up around 12 times or so. I think, 2 hours, 120 minutes, around that time. Maybe I'm going to put a real-time version online, but I'm not sure if that's really interesting to watch this for 2 hours. But anyway, and gradually I'm drawing more of her body. I really like making these kind of nude studies. And I don't really know much about anatomy, but I'm not sure when you have a certain sensitivity for these kind of things, if that's really necessary. If you're working from photographs, some people will say, "Oh, what you're saying now is very stupid," but I don't know much about anatomy. But sometimes too much knowing about anatomy can stand in the way of a convincing image even, but I think that's a topic for a different video. But I think that's an interesting topic. And here I'm adjusting all kinds of details in her face, in her hair, adding some tonal value in her shoulder part, chest, and going further with working on the rest of her body. And usually I first add the shadows, and I keep the lighted parts white for a while, and later on I add tonal values in those as well. So that's more or less the method of working. First the shadow side, the darkest areas, and then the lighted side as well, but in a subtle way, because there must be a difference, of course, between what is being lighted and what is in the shadow. And gradually her body starts to take shape with light and dark areas. And I go from one detail to another and constantly adjusting all kinds of areas, adding accentuations here and there. And I'm using a mechanical pen, I think, pencil. I think it's half a millimeter. And I guess it's HB, I'm not even sure to be honest. But I think it's HB. And here I added some stronger accentuations to make things a little darker. So at a certain moment I need to add darker accentuations to get from a certain grayness in the drawing to a more darker drawing. And I'm using one pencil, so I'm not using multiple pencils. One could say, yeah, you could take a darker one, but I like to use one pencil. That's sort of personal preference. There's nothing wrong using different materials or different pencils, but I like working with one pencil and from start to finish. Adding tonal values here and there. And I'm trying to get a certain shine on her leg that's to the front. And it's hatching upon hatching, so it's not just one or two directions. I think when you choose a certain area, you have maybe 4 or 5 or even 8 or 10 lines on top of each other, and they can also be very dynamic in forcefulness, in how dark they are or light they are. As you can see, the figure is quite finished by now. Because this is speeded up, it goes very fast. I cannot draw this in 6 minutes or 10. But to be talking for 2 hours, making a narrated video is a bit long. And I'm adding, still adding accentuations and things. Also background to give it more atmosphere, so she doesn't stand so isolated. But what I want to say is also in the later stages I'm still working on her face. And here I'm adding tonal values, accentuations to the background. And that's important part of composition, getting the right background. So when you have this figure, you can add tonal values in the background and see how it creates a harmonious image. Her hair, her leg. Some more tonal value here and there. I don't really want the paper to be white, so I'm not covering everything, but I try to get all over the area of the paper, all over the paper plane, or how do you say it? Some sort of hatching or accentuation or something. So in a subtle way I try to draw all over the paper, so to speak. Even if it's a few white hatchings right from each other. Here I'm adding hatchings in the background, as I said, trying to fill the background in a decent way, in such a way that she's really in a certain atmosphere, that you can imagine that she is breathing there, in that space where she is. Not really a space, but it gives a certain spatial effect, impression when you add background like this in a subtle way. And here it is. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed making this one. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Her face. It's a very small drawing, but I like these kind of hatchings. I like this way of drawing as well. So thank you very much for your attention. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.